The rain tapped softly against the Café copyright window, a steady rhythm that matched the nervous flutter in Emily Parker's chest. She sat at a small wooden table near the corner, her fingers tracing the edge of a chipped ceramic mug. The scent of fresh coffee and warm pastries filled the air, wrapping the room in a cozy haze. Outside, the Seattle streets glistened under gray clouds, umbrellas bobbing like colorful mushrooms in the drizzle. Emily glanced at her phone. 5 minutes until he arrived, her first blind date in years, set up by her friend Sarah, who swore the sky was different. Emily wasn't sure she believed in different anymore. She adjusted her sweater, a soft blue one she'd picked because it felt safe, familiar. Her life hadn't been easy lately. The layoff from her graphic design job hit hard, and her savings were dwindling faster than she'd like to admit. Rent was due next week, and her fridge held little more than a half-empty jar of pickles and some yogurt past its prime. Still, she'd agreed to this date, mostly to quiet Sarah's nagging. "You need to get out, Sarah had said. "Live a little." So here she was, living a little, or at least trying to. The Café copyright door jingled, and Emily's eyes flicked up. A man stepped inside, shaking rain from his dark coat. He was tall, with neatly trimmed hair and a quiet confidence that seemed to shift the room's energy. His name, Sarah had said, was James Carter. Emily's stomach twisted. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on her. A small smile curved his lips, and he walked over, his steps steady, unhurried. "Emily?" His voice was warm, like the glow of the Café copyright test string lights. She nodded, forcing a smile. "James?" "Hi." He slid into the chair across from her, his presence calm but commanding, like he belonged anywhere he chose to be. They exchanged small talk: weather, traffic, Sarah's knack for meddling. Emily found herself relaxing, just a bit. James had a way of listening, really listening, his hazel eyes steady on hers. He didn't fidget or check his phone. He asked about her art, her favorite books, and laughed softly when she admitted she'd once tried to paint her cat's portrait and ended up with a canvas of claw marks. The waitress, a young woman with a bright smile, stopped by to take their order. Emily hesitated, her eyes skimming the menu. The prices weren't extravagant, but every dollar mattered now. She settled on a simple latte and a croissant, mentally calculating the cost. James ordered a black coffee and a sandwich, his tone easy, unbothered. The conversation flowed again, and Emily almost forgot the weight in her chest. Almost. Time slipped by, the rain outside softening to a drizzle. The Café copyright grew busier, tables filling with couples and students, their chatter blending with the clink of cups. Emily sipped her latte, savoring its warmth, but a nagging thought crept in. The bill. She hadn't planned for this, hadn't budgeted for a Café copyright date. Her card might cover it, but it'd be tight. She pushed the worry down, focusing on James's story about a hiking trip gone wrong, his self-deprecating humor pulling a genuine laugh from her. When the waitress set the bill on the table, Emily's heart sank. The total was higher than she'd expected. Her latte, the croissant, a small tip. She reached for her purse, her fingers brushing the worn leather, and felt a flush of embarrassment creep up her neck. She'd have to check her balance, maybe skip groceries for a day or two. Her mind raced, calculating, weighing. She didn't want James to see her like this, scrambling, exposed. James reached for the bill before she could. "I've got this," he said, his tone light, final. Emily froze, her hand still on her purse. "Oh, no, I can't. It's on me," he said, meeting her eyes. There was no pity there, no judgment, just a quiet certainty. He slid his card to the waitress, who whisked the bill away. Emily's cheeks burned. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated how small she felt, how her situation, jobless, scraping by, seemed to spill out in that moment. "I wanted to," James said simply. He leaned back, his expression soft. "No strings attached, Emily, just coffee and good company." She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle it, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she nodded, her eyes dropping to the table. The rain had stopped outside, and a sliver of sunlight broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow across the Café copyright. It felt like a small mercy, a moment to breathe. They talked a little longer, the conversation lighter now, about music and old movies, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being seen, not just as the woman across the table, but as someone carrying a weight she hadn't meant to share. When they stood to leave, James held the door for her, and they stepped into the cool, damp air. The city felt softer now, the streets quieter as the clouds parted. "Walk with me?" James asked, gesturing toward the park across the street, its trees golden with autumn leaves. Emily hesitated, then nodded. They crossed the street, their steps slow, the crunch of leaves underfoot blending with the distant hum of traffic. The park was nearly empty, save for a few joggers and a dog chasing a frisbee. Emily's nerves settled, the open space easing the tightness in her chest. "Sarah didn't tell me much about you," Emily said, glancing at him. "What do you do?" James chuckled, a low, easy sound. "I run a company, tech stuff, mostly. Keeps me busy." She nodded, picturing a small startup, maybe a handful of employees. "Sounds intense." "It can be," he said, his eyes on the path ahead. "But it's just work. Doesn't define everything." They walked in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind that didn't demand filling. Emily noticed the way James moved, a confident but not showy, like he didn't need to prove anything. She wondered what Sarah had told him about her, if he knew about the layoff, the struggle. The thought made her stomach twist again. They stopped by a bench overlooking a small pond, its surface rippling in the breeze. James sat, and Emily joined him, the wood cool beneath her hands. She wanted to thank him again for the bill, to explain why it mattered, but the words felt too heavy, too raw. Instead, she said, "I haven't done this in a while. Dating, I mean." "It's a broken bar, kind of scary." James turned to her, his expression gentle. "Yeah, it's like jumping into cold water. You're not sure if you'll sink or swim." She laughed softly, surprised by how well he put it. "Exactly." They sat there, watching the water, the ducks gliding lazily across it. Emily felt a shift, a small crack in the wall she'd built around herself. James didn't push, didn't pry. He just sat, present, letting the moment breathe. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing slightly. "Sorry, I need to check this," he said, stepping a few feet away. Emily watched him, noting the way her shoulders tensed, the quiet authority in his voice as he spoke into the phone. She caught fragments of something about a board meeting, a deadline. When he returned, his smile was back, but there was a flicker of something else, something guarded. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just work," he said, waving it off. "Always something." They started walking again, looping back toward the Café. Copyright. Emily felt a pull to know more about him, to understand the man who'd paid her bill without a second thought, who seemed so at ease in his own skin, but she didn't ask. Not yet. When they reached her car, parked a block from the Café. Copyright, Emily turned to him. "Thanks for today," she said, meaning it. "And for a broken bar, you know, the bill." James smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Anytime, Emily." "I mean it." She drove home, the city lights blurring through her windshield. Her apartment was small, cluttered with sketchbooks and half-finished paintings, but it felt warmer tonight. She sat on her couch, replaying the date, the way James had looked at her, not with pity, but with something like respect. It lingered, that feeling, like a candle flickering in a dark room. The next morning, Sarah called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "So, how was it?" Emily smiled, stirring her coffee. "It was a broken bar. Nice." "Really nice." "Nice." Sarah laughed. "Come on, Bill. He's kind," Emily said, searching for the right words. "And he paid for everything." "Which was a broken bar." Unexpected. Sarah went quiet for a second. "Yeah. About that, I probably should have mentioned. James isn't just some guy. He's, like, James Carter. You know, Carter Tech? The guy's a millionaire, CEO, big deal, the whole thing." Emily's mug slipped from her hand, hitting the counter with a dull thud. "What? Didn't I tell you?" Sarah said, oblivious to the shock in Emily's silence. "He's loaded, but super down to earth. Didn't want to scare you off by mentioning it." Emily's mind spun. A millionaire, the man who'd sat across from her, laughing about a muddy hiking trail, was a CEO. The bill, the ease, the quiet confidencia, it all clicked. She felt a mix of awe and unease. Why hadn't he said anything? Why had he let her ramble about her cat painting and her tiny, struggling life? She didn't hear from James for a few days, and the silence gnawed at her. Had she misread him? Was the date just a polite gesture, a story for him to tell his rich friends? But then her phone pinged, a text from James. "Hey, Emily, had a great time the other day. Want to grab dinner this weekend? My treat, no pressure." She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to say no, to protect herself from whatever this was, a world she didn't belong in, a man whose life was so far from hers. But another part, the part that remembered his steady gaze, his quiet kindness, wanted to say yes. She typed back, "Dinner sounds great, but I'm paying for my half this time." His reply came quickly, "Deal." Looking forward to it. The weekend came, and they met at a small Italian restaurant, its walls lined with old photos and fairy lights. James was there first, waiting outside, his coat open despite the chill. They talked for hours, the conversation deeper now, touching on dreams, fears, the things that kept them up at night. Emily told him about the layoff, the uncertainty, her love for art that felt like a fading dream. James listened, then shared his own story, not the CEO version, but the kid who'd grown up with nothing, who'd built his company from sleepless nights and stubborn hope. When the bill came, Emily reached for her card, determined. James raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. They split it, and it felt right, like a small step toward balance. As they walked out into the night, the air crisp and sharp, James stopped, turning to her. "You know, Emily, I like that you don't care about the money. Most people do." She met his eyes, her heart steady. "I care about who you are, not what you have." He smiled, and in that moment, the gap between their worlds felt smaller, less daunting. They stood there, the city humming around them, and Emily felt something new, a spark of possibility, fragile but real. "See you again?" James asked, his voice soft. "Yeah," she said, smiling. "Definitely." As she walked home, the stars peeking through the clouds, Emily felt lighter. Life was still messy, still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to keep going. Sometimes, she thought, all it takes is one person to see you, really see you, to make the world feel a little less heavy. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.